All right, if you have ever been frustrated trying to get your iOS provisioning profiles to work with Firebase Cloud messaging and getting notifications actually sent across onto your device, then this video is really going to help you out. Now, in this first part of a two-part series, what I'm going to be talking about specifically is getting iOS set up. And in the next video, we will start talking about the Firebase Cloud messaging. Here, to make certain that you have a background on what we're going to be talking about today. First, you should be able to look at this screen and go, okay, you've done certificates before, you've done provisioning profiles, things along those lines. Additionally, right, actually setting up the profiles, this should be relatively familiar to you. And then taking a look at this page, that should just kind of be a very comfortable interaction. Additionally, when we're talking about getting Firebase actually set up within your Flutter app, make certain that these three commands right here you're very familiar with as well. So once you have all that, let's go ahead and start talking about getting our Firebase Cloud messaging to actually work with iOS provisioning profiles and keys and everything else that we need for this. So the first thing we're going to do is look at our identifiers, right? And these are our capabilities that we're setting up within our app. So we're immediately going to go into certificates and identities, and we're going to go into identifiers, and you may create a new one or edit an existing one, whichever it is. This is just where you have the reverse domain, whichever your bundle identifier is, right? Now, in particular, to get cloud messaging set up, when you go into the capabilities, you're going to scroll down, you're going to go to push notifications, and here there are a couple things that we need to pay attention to. Right off the bat, you'll notice broadcast capabilities. We're not going to use this right now. Broadcast capabilities is something that, if you're not familiar with cloud messaging, can get very expensive very quickly. So for now, do not use this. Once you're comfortable with cloud messaging, if you want to come back and update your provisioning profile and your identifier, then so be it. But for now, I highly recommend that you don't check it. Additionally, you'll look at the configure button. Now, a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm going to go ahead and configure this, but actually we are not going to configure anything. For all intents and purposes, we're done at this point. Now, if you do incidentally click on the configure button, you're going to be brought up to this page, and you'll notice that we have these SSL certs, right? Now, this is not the way that things are done within Firebase Cloud messaging, so we're not going to even do that. So you don't have to, just don't do anything, click done, and then in the upper right-hand corner, all you're going to do is click save, and your identifier or your identity for this app is completely done. It's absolutely ready for Firebase Cloud messaging. Next, moving in from our identifiers into our profiles, all that this is, it's just your distribution provisioning profile. That's it, right? You're going to use an iOS app development. When you select it, you're going to click on continue, and you're going to move on. Now, I do want to bring up one thing about distribution profiles really quick. Down when you select a distribution profile, the proper one to select would be App Store Connect, right? Now, I'm going to talk more about this distribution, kind of little gotcha, but if you select this, that continue button is going to be there, and you do the exact same thing. Now, you're going to come up to this UI. Select an app ID, right? All you're doing is selecting whichever app you're getting ready to enable app push or Apple push notifications. That's it, whichever one you're selecting. Now, once you do this, then you have a continue button. But with a developer, or a production cert, you may see something like this. No certs are available. And you may be tempted, okay, well, I'll just go ahead and create a cert. But before you do that, take a look back at your certificates that you currently have. And if you notice one over here, it says distribution managed, right? So even though the last screen said there's no distribution certificates available, you clearly have one. It's right here. But because it's managed, we are not going to create a new one. Ultimately, what we're going to do a little bit down the road is inside of Xcode, on our release for our capabilities, right next to our capabilities, we are going to select automatically managed signing. Okay, so here, when we manage the signing, this is actually allowing your environment to reach back into your developer portal and pull that managed cert. Okay, so once again, for production certs, don't click this button to create a new one if you already have a managed cert. If you already have a managed cert like I do, you're going to see this screen. All you need to do is pretty much just go back to all your profiles. You do not even need to develop this distribution profile. Again, you just got your developer provisioning profile and you're good to go. So the next thing that we need to talk about are keys. Now this is new for quite a few people and it's pretty straightforward really. You're just going to come in and you're going to select your keys. Again, this is on the menu on the left-hand side of the Apple Developer Portal. You're going to select your keys. Now, the one thing to keep in mind about your keys is they're per account, not per app. Meaning, you're going to have one dev key, you're going to have one prod key, and even if you have 1,000 apps, those exact same dev and prod keys are going to go to all your Firebase Cloud Messaging configurations, right? So keep that in mind. It's going to become important here in a minute. Now, back at keys, when we go ahead and recreate one, we're going to come up to this screen and we need to select and actually have Apple push notifications selected, okay? Now, for the key name, here's something to consider. For the dev, you might do, FCM dev key. And then for prod, you might do FCM prod key. But what you don't want to do is app-foo production key and app-foo dev key and then app bar prod key, right? This is per account. So make certain that when you're naming it, it makes sense. Now you'll notice that for the Apple push notification service, it says this service must have environment and type configured. And here we are going to click on that configure button. Once we click on that configure button, we'll come down and this is our environment. You'll notice we have sandbox, production, and then we have a combination. Now, a lot of people will look at that combination of sandbox and production and just say, oh, well, I'll just use that because you're only allowed so many keys. You think, oh, well, this saves me more keys. I'll put them all in one place, but that's not recommended. So we'll come back to that. But what I want to talk about here is when we talk about key restrictions over here, you'll notice that it's team scoped all topics. All the cloud messaging, they have topics, right? It could be sail on the East Coast or sail on the West Coast. They're topics, right? So you want to be very careful about a global topic because if you have 100,000 users and you send out 100,000 messages, you're getting charged for all of those. So you do want to keep things in topic kind of organization, which is one of the reasons we didn't use that broadcast selection earlier, okay? A lot of people say, oh, I'll have a global topic. I don't know if I'd recommend that, but FYI, that's why we didn't do it earlier. Now, what I want to talk about is, if you'll notice my environment, I have both sandbox and production selected, and you'll notice from Apple, it is telling you right off the bat that that is not recommended at all, okay? So keep that in mind. Now, once you are done with all of this, you need to actually download each one of your production keys or each one of your keys, production and development. And all that's going to be is a .p8 file. And you're going to need this .pa file certainly later when we start looking at Firebase, which we'll do in the next video. Now here, know that you're only going to have one opportunity to really bring these down. Now, if you first create it and something gets messed up, deleting is no big deal. But if you lose that PA key 5 years down the road, you're looking for it, then, it might be a little bit more of an interesting situation. So keep that in mind. You get one shot. That's it. Make sure that you download this. That's all we're doing for this video. This is part 1. In the next video, we'll go over the Firebase Cloud Messaging as well as Android.